I thought in this video I would show you my new technique to do with collage. I've always been interested in line drawings and sketching, and I've always wanted to take my work a little bit further, make it a little bit more fine art. So I thought I would try something a bit different. And what I tried was to make a picture using collage elements with ink drawings on top. And what you can see I've produced here is a fairly decent image, I think. You've got the this is Bournemouth Pier. I've used collage technique to bring out the zip line at the end of the pier, and then some paper again to highlight where the pier is. And I like the use of text along the side of the buildings to indicate sort of the makeup of the building. So this is where my kind of technique started, and what I wanted to do was to see how much further I could push that envelope. So I then sort of moved on to some different styles of collage, some more kind of proper collage, I suppose. There's elements of the paper that I've put onto the support coming through the work, and I like these images. I like the use of text. This is backwards text on the harbour wall on this particular painting. This is a painting of Tenby Harbour, and I quite like the use of the sort of the Welsh word in the image. I found some more words here that I thought would work well with this particular sketch, which is some people fishing off of Saundersfoot Beach. So I thought I'd make a sort of an image of that, and I like the fact that the text is coming through and sort of forms a reflection. And I've used an old painting here. These are all sort of 4-inch squares of old paintings that I've cut up, and you can see the old piece of watercolour in the background, which sort of act quite nice as a surface of rock. So I kind of like these images, and I wanted to see how much further I could push the work. What I like again is the text in the clouds that behind the image. So that's kind of my starting point for this video. Is to show you how I get to the support first of all, and then to work on how we transfer that drawing across, and trying to get those elements of collage working through the image. So let's look at the first step of the process. So I start off with an old painting which I've cut up. So I've made some squares of the painting. This is just an odd piece of watercolour paper that was left over, so that's just a clean piece. This is a corner of a painting that I just didn't like. It's quite a nice blue on it, and this was from a demo, and this is a demo painting piece of paper. So there was some horses I did with one artist, and then this was an acrylic workshop that I did. And I didn't like the painting, so I decided to cut it up and kind of think about how might we use that. And the technique I'm going to show you is how I've used these pieces of paper. So the first thing I would do is to work out what I want to use as collage materials. And this is just some examples of the papers I would use. This is some children's kind of sugar paper, and this comes in all sorts of colours, which is nice. And actually you can get the idea of the two colours together, which is nice, because you can then kind of match those in your paint. Some green here as well, so that's some of the stuff that I would use. Again, I love text, so this is an old piece of newspaper. It's actually a piece of newspaper that I've used when I was doing some oil painting, so you can see some of the oil colour there. I also started to use some. This was just, I was testing out some new paint on a piece of paper, but actually tearing up this and including this in collage seems to work quite nice as well. And so this paper is lovely. It's got a lovely texture, and I've been starting to look for papers with texture in it. And when you paint, let me show you this one. You can see, or maybe you can't see, but there's texture coming through the background behind the seagull, which I quite like. I think you can just see it through here, which I like. So texture is quite a nice use for collage. And then these are just various bits of magazine that I've cut out, and I look for things where there's imagery that I could cover and use again. So that's some of my materials. Also, if I'm painting sort of an area, so like Wales, I'll pick up an old magazine that's in the shops, and you can find some nice sort of colours and stuff in here. That yellow's lovely, that I could use in my collage work. So for this, I'm going to do a small demonstration. For this small demonstration, I'm going to paint some snowdrops, and I've always had trouble painting snowdrops because, and this is where my use of collage I think is going to be useful for me. It's finding how to make those abstract shapes work for me. So I'm going to start very much with some sugar paper, and these are the leaves that I'm going to be putting down for the background of the snowdrop. So I'll start by just placing things and seeing how it looks, how it works. How does it feel? Is it giving me the effect that I want? And I'm trying to get those the leaves on snowdrops go up. So that's what I'm kind of trying to do, because the paper's all curled because of the way I've torn it. And I like to use torn edges as well, which is nice. So there we go. So I might do something a bit like that. And then I was thinking about the snowdrop heads themselves and the way they droop down, and I thought this might be another lovely area to use some text. So I thought I would just kind of start to get the sort of flower shapes in text form on the piece of paper, and as you can see, that's starting to work quite nicely. And then when I was looking at the picture that I'm using for reference, you can see that I could start to make some kind of leaf shapes and some nice dark text there to give you some contrast. So just zoom in on that a little bit, and you can see here all I'm going to do is tear myself a sort of a leaf shape out of the paper and place that down as well. This is actually quite a nice colour for leaf, so I'm kind of glad I picked this up actually. So that could be there maybe, and inspirational, let's take some of that word there. And as you can see, it looks a bit of a mess, but I think I can see where I'm going with it. You can stick it down with PVA glue, but I find with PVA glue it's not waterproof, and if you start to put watercolour or what I'm going to be using is gouache across it, it will lift the paper up. So I've started to use this. This is just some acrylic matte medium, so it's what you would mix with acrylic paint to make it go matte, or you put it over the top at the end of your painting, and this seems to stick the paper down really well. So let's stick some paper down and see how that goes. The one thing I will say about this medium is it does stick to your hands and make a horrible mess. So I'm just going to rough out. I'm just going to cover the paper with this first of all, just to help stick it down, and just making those wonderful sort of leaf shapes that I saw in the picture. I'm going to make a nice, I think I'm going to make a nice sort of, maybe that one would be better up that way. Let's do that. That's lovely. I'm going to be covering this with gesso as well, so not worry too much about. Oops, there we go. And then maybe another one. I'm going to just make that smaller. That's perfect. There we go. Let's put that one in there. And maybe another very thin one through the back. Oops. Oh, let's use that bit there. That's perfect. And now for those flower heads, which I'm going to put down. They sort of hang down like that, so let's put one in there. Sort of clump together a little bit as well. Oh, that's quite a nice piece. I might put that down the bottom of the leaf. Looks like that's that one there. Some more up here maybe. Down a bit further down here. I'm not really thinking too much at the moment about, I'm just kind of trying to get the feeling of this. Oops, there we go. And maybe one, a smaller one, kind of up here. There we go. They do sort of clump together. And then those leaf shapes that I saw, I just want to put them along the bottom here. So let's put random bits of paper across the bottom here, that lovely dark shape. I think I'm going to put that for this side. And another one just in there, I think. So this is very much a kind of, I'm thinking about where I'm putting the elements on the paper here. What I find more exciting is actually not to think about that too much. So one that I created, a couple I created earlier, I've actually just put some bits of paper randomly on here. I've got a nice horizon line there, so I might use that as a horizon line. I could equally put that up the other way, and this is the nice thing about the collage paper. You can think about how you might. I originally wanted the lines down here when I was looking at this, but when I was looking at it earlier, I thought that actually makes quite a nice horizon line. So yeah, that's kind of where we're heading. So I'm just going to give that a few minutes to dry, and then I'll work on the next bit of the process, which is to add some gesso to the image. So I've been drawing a lot, and I want to show you now a couple of pages from my lockdown sketchbook. It's a sketchbook that I started using when I was in lockdown with the pandemic. And this is the scene you've just seen that I've drawn, the starting point for all of my collage work. This is the pier at Bournemouth and the zip line and the sort of grey scale that I work in when I'm sketching. And this is a series of images that I created when we went for a walk in Windsor. So this is the long walk to the castle. This is a house very close to the castle that we've sort of passed. The memorial, the Queen Victoria Memorial statue that's outside the Windsor Castle itself, and then an image of Windsor Castle. And what I normally tend to do after I've created these images is then create a sort of a small watercolour image as well. And somehow I feel that the images, I've lost something between this ink sketch and the watercolour, and I wanted to find a better way to represent that work, and I felt that collage would be the way to go. So I have sort of finished one of these images, so let's have a look at what I ended up with. So the Windsor Castle image I transferred to this shape here. So this is just using random collage stuck down, and then I've drawn the image over the top, and I've very much found my way through what I wanted, the grass coming down here, the way the texture runs in the way the grass, there's a wall at the front. All of this has sort of been organic from the way I put the paper down. The only bits I put in was the text going up the towers. The rest of it was very random when I added it to the paper. So I worked up some more for the Queen Victoria statue, and this one is as a much more structured approach. You can see the statue there is going to be there. You can see the background is all the elements are in the right place, and this is almost the right shape, and there's some lovely perspective. What I've done here is there's another piece of watercolour paper, a painting that went wrong, and I've gessoed over the top of it. And I've also dragged some lines down to make the surface look like it's a wet road. And I think that one will work quite well once I get stuck into it. So let's go back to the Snowdrops and see how we get on with the next step in my process. So as you can see, everything is dry now. I've got my shapes. It's starting to look like leaves and snowdrop shapes. So the next part of my process is to use some gesso. So this is just some normal white gesso. It's some water in the bottom of that palette there, and I'm just going to drag it across my work, maybe just thinking about some of these shapes a bit, making them a bit more like the shape that I want, getting rid of some of the shapes. There's a nice leaf shape here, let's push that in. Another one there, and a bit and this just adds to the surface that I will draw on to make. Let's put a bit more, and some of this, that keeps some of these leaf flower shapes. And if you don't like what you've done, you can take another brush and scrape out some of the colour. So that's the next step, to put the gesso on the image. And when we come back, I'll show you how I ink in the picture. So I've let the gesso dry onto the page, and now what I'm going to do is kind of draw in some random snowdrop shapes, not flakes, snowdrop shapes, so that you can kind of get the idea of what I'm going to produce in this picture. So back to the drawing board. So I'm going to very lightly put in some shapes, and I'm looking at my my reference picture, and just bring in these sort of snowdrop shapes into my image. And this one, I'm going to make this the back of a snowdrop, so we're going to have to bring that down there, and we've got this sort of shape that comes out kind of through the back of the picture and then does that. This one again, let's do this. So that's the drawing done. I won't do too much more drawing there. And now what I'm going to do is use my gouache paints to add some colour to the image. So let's go back and have a go at that. So I've got my colours laid out. I've got ultramarine blue, yellow ochre, a white and a green. And what I'm simply going to do first of all is mix up some of that blue with some white. Get myself a nice sort of colour going, and then turn the paper upside down and just pull out some of those shapes that I've created in my work. Trying to work out where things are. And I've got some colour mix in there, not quite so well. Let's do that line there. Maybe some blue in there, through there. Not putting any more paint on the brush, just letting it run out naturally. Covering up some of the text. And then just gonna just do that, I think. And I can use a bit of tissue just to scrape that back, I think, a bit. And I'll leave that to dry now and come back and finish it off. So I've managed to get the image to a kind of a point where I want it to be, and now I'm going to put a little bit of ink work in it, I think, just to finish it off a bit. So let's go and have a look at the image. You can start to see it's getting some shape. I love the colours down here, this red of the paper, the newspaper that I used to make these old leaf shapes which are on the ground at the moment, sort of rotting leaves. I might make a bit more of that. I'm not sure about this at the moment. I think it's still drawing my eye, so I might put some colour over that. But I'm going to start by going into the snowdrops themselves. So I'm just going to get my image back up on my iPad. And I'm going to draw back into some of these shapes. This one up here I want to draw into. You can see how the ink pen kind of works here, and the paint's not quite dry, so that's adding to the effect. And I'm not going to draw, I'm just going to draw at the shapes, not there's a kind of a bit there, and I'm just going to draw at the shapes, like I'm not drawing proper snowdrops here, just the sort of the shapes that I see. So I'm drawing remember which ones I was drawing again, adding to the effect, I guess. I'm going to use an old pen because this is obviously change my approach, I think. And change to a brush pen. Snowdrops. So that's my process for doing collage work. So I hope you give it a try. If you do, let me know in the comments. If you've got any questions, let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, please give me a like. And if you're feeling very daring, you could even subscribe. Anyway, thank you for viewing.